2019 is a big year for Danish designers Asger Harding Granerud and Daniel Skjold Petersen, as they have multiple games coming out from multiple publishers. They started off the year with Copenhagen, a big family-friendly game from Queen, based on the most famous town in their country. A game in which you are placing polyomino tiles into buildings to score points. You're trying to race other players to score 12 points first, so you're trying to line up windows and manage things optimally so that you get to that point total first. That game will be followed at Spiel 19 by Copenhagen Roll and Write, which features the same gameplay-ish, mostly, except instead of using cards, you are now going to use dice in order to fill up the buildings in your town. There is the big box game Deep Blue, coming from Days of Wonder, a sort of collaborative yet competitive press your luck game that I played a couple times in prototype. I hope to preview before it debuts. So, can't hold up that box now. You'll just have to pretend. On top of that, they're starting their own company. Yes, it wasn't enough for them to sell all these designs to other places. They're going to publish their own work from Sidekick Games, with their first title being Bloomtown, a 2 to 4 player game, plays in about 30 minutes for ages 8 and up. You are building your own individual town by laying tiles on the board, and as in other town building games like Quadropolis or Suburbia, the towns have different point values depending on what type of building they are. Here are the components for Bloomtown, but please note this is a mock-up provided for review purposes in advance of the actual production of the game, so the quality of the components might differ once you see a final copy. The game includes a whole bunch of building tiles that come in 5 types. Each player gets a board upon which they will build their own town. This is double-sided. There is meaning to that. I'll talk about that in a moment. There are Bloom tokens with which players will track their points. You're trying to have the most points to win. Each player gets a bonus token that can be used once during the game. You have some intermediate scoring tiles, which will be shuffled with the building tiles upon the game setup. You have a town square where you will draft tiles, a first player marker, and 5 types of buildings that all score in different ways, although they are all played identically. That is, you will have a hand of 2 tiles, and on a turn you will place 1 tile from your hand into an empty space on your board. Offices all want to be adjacent to one another to have a big business park in your town, and they score based on the number of other offices that are orthogonally adjacent. So the first one you place is 1 point, and the second is 2, and the third is 3, and the fourth, if you place it over here, is only 1 point. So you probably don't want to do that. 4 points for offices. Subways work similarly, except they score based on diagonal adjacency. So 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and let's go with 4. Parks work roughly the same way, except the first park you place is worth 1 point, the next one is worth 3, the next one is worth 4, and the next one is worth nothing because this park is too big. Let's share some of the park love in the city by placing it somewhere else. This is 1 point on its own. And now you can build up another park here. Homes are valued based on being adjacent to buildings of different types because the people who live in the homes want lots of variety when they're walking around town. So a home placed on its own is worth only 1 point because it's valuable on its own, but there's nothing else around it to make it enticing. If a home is here, it's going to score 1 point for the home and 1 for the office and the park. So 3 points total. There's empty lot here, and this is the edge of town where no one lives. This home is worth 4 points. 1 for itself, 1 for the park, 1 for the subway, nothing for this subway because whatever. We have 1 subway already, and 1 for the home next to it. You have neighbors, you have pals. That's good. So you're trying to place all those in to get points, and then the shops score based on being next to 2 types of buildings that are not shops, because they're trying to sell things to people who live or work in particular areas. So each shop has a color up top. So this one has yellow and blue, yellow and green, green and red, and it will score points based on being adjacent to those types of buildings. So this shop down here is worth only 1 point because it wants to be next to yellow and green buildings. Here, 4 points. 1 for the shop itself and 1 each for each adjacent matching building. So this one is 3 next to red and green. This one is 2. It's next to 2 blue. Okay, only 3 points. If this subway were over here, it'd be worth 4 points, but then this subway itself would not score based on being adjacent to that. Better choice might be here. 4 points for this shop. That's how these buildings score. To set up the game, you're going to take all the tiles, place them face down. Each person drafts 2 building tiles, and then you take the intermediate scoring tiles and you shuffle them in with all the buildings and then make stacks on the town square. In concept, Bloomtown is reminiscent of 2016's Quadropolis, designed by Francois Gandon, published by Days of Wonder, as in both games, players are drafting tiles from a shared area, building up their own individual board with different types of tiles scoring in different ways based on what they're adjacent to or how they're placed. There's similarities to those, but there's big differences in how they play out, primarily because Bloomtown plays extremely fast compared to Quadropolis. Has a bit more randomness in terms of how things score and what the resolution of the game is going to be like. After mixing the scoring tiles with the building tiles, you stack them on the board in stacks 8, 11, and 13 tiles high with 2, 3, and 4 players. With 2 and 3 players, you have to first remove some of the building tiles just to adjust for the length of the game. You place those on the town square board, and you turn the top tile of each stack face up to make a drafting area. If you have any scoring tiles come up, you put those at the top of the board and replace them. The second time that a scoring tile of the same type comes up, that type of building scores. So the subways are going to score when the second one appears, but of course you don't know where it is in the stack. You might try to build up subways as much as you can to try to get a jump on that in case it comes up early. But right now, you don't even have subway tiles available in the drafting area. Maybe you have one in your hand, as I did in one of my 2 starting tiles. You can place that down anywhere on the board. If you place it in a green area, you get a bonus. So maybe I want to place this here. The first thing you do after placing it is score. I'll get 1 point for my lone subway. And then because I placed the subway on this leaf area, I take the tile next to the leaf and I put it in my hand. When you place on a green area, and there are 5 on the A side of the board, there's 4 on the B side in different areas and a different arrangement of icons. When you place in the green area, you can then either score those points again for that building, which is 1 point, not good, or you can take another turn immediately, which seems much more fruitful. I'll place a park into this leaf or sunburst row, and then draft this park from the sunburst market. And now I've got 2 parks in the hand to maximize my park points in the future. At the end of my turn, these tiles are turned face up. Other people are going to go. They're going to draft things as well. And so, of course, they're going to take other things away. Oh, hey. Here's a subway tile, which maybe I want to draft on my turn, but I would have to put a park in this column, which is going to give me only 1 point, as opposed to 3 points if I place it next to another park. Well, let's put this here, take the subway tile, flip this over, and then next turn I can put a park here, and now I get 4 points. Maybe that's good, because I'm trying to get this subway down, but I didn't even put down the subway. Maybe it would be better to not do that, and instead build my park up here, where I would double the points, getting 8 points for this park rather than playing another tile. You don't know what's going to be the best choice because you don't know which tiles are going to come up when and when things are going to score. So if I did carry on like this, maybe on my next turn, what do I even want to collect? I don't know. So I want to eventually get all my subways down. I'll pick up an office building. Right, maybe build up office buildings over here for another office building. Oh, and now office buildings have a potential score. Oh, and now parks have a potential scoring. Okay. These tiles come up at random, and they really vary what's going to happen and what's going to score at particular times over the course of the game. Everyone scores when these items score again. Now, normally parks are worth 1, 3, and 4, and these vary depending on how many you have connected. When they rescore, each of the parks and subways and offices are worth 2 points each. Each of the shops and homes are worth whatever they're worth based on what's surrounding them. So you might take a home and put it down here where it's worth only 1 point, and then as the game progresses, you build up and put other things around it that will then make it worth more when the home scores again, if the home even scores. Bloomtown ends when 3 stacks are empty in a 2-player game, 3 of these stacks, or when 2 stacks are empty in a 3- and 4-player game. So if everyone ends up building in the same areas, you might deplete these stacks quickly. You'll come here. Whoop! If anyone places a tile in this row on their board, they will take this tile, flip this over, this stack will be empty, and it will trigger the final round of the game. Everyone takes 1 final turn, so everyone has the same number of turns total in the game. And then you take the 2 tiles that you have in hand, and you decide to rescore for one of those 2 types. So ideally, you're trying to build something on the board that will get you lots of points at the end of the game when you do that final rescoring. Ideally, of course, the park's scoring marker will come up and we'll score the parks again, because I would get 8 points off of that now. I'll get 8 points off of that at the end of the game. If I hold on to this park, of course, maybe I want to build up again. Put this here, draft this other one. Now I have another park in the hand. I'll get 10 points for the end game scoring. You're trying to build that up. Well, that depends on what's going to be available and whether this tile even shows. If it never shows, you've sort of wasted your time, but you don't really know what's going to happen with these tiles. You're trying to dig for them, but you have no idea of what is where, and maybe the game will end before you even get a chance to see them. It all depends on where people build and what they are trying to do relative to you. I played Bloomtown 5 times on a mock-up copy from Sidekick Games with 2, 3, and 4 players. And at the end of all 5 games, I finish and we say, oh, that was a lot faster than I thought. Which possibly says something about me, that I have not yet grasped that this game goes pretty quick. Each time we play, we seem to have people who are drawing tiles only from the same stack. So the pace of the game is far faster than it could be if we were placing elsewhere on the board, spreading things out a bit more, drawing from other stacks, and then building up to other things. But of course, you are incentivized to place things where they will score the most points. So that means parks go together, offices go together, subways go together, and then shops and homes go where you already have other tiles, which means they're primarily going in the same columns where you're already building. I played only once on the B side of the game board, and that side differs because unlike the A side where you have all the icons in the same columns, the B has them at a diagonal basis, so they don't quite line up as easily as in the A side. So it's not just I'm building here and then I'll keep drawing from that stack as I build. If I build on this side, I'm going to draw from one stack and then a different stack and a different stack. Still happened the one game we played on the B side. Additionally, there was one complication where on this side of the board, if you cover a column, you can just look up and see where you're supposed to draw from on the town square board, because almost always one of those icons is still visible. On this side of the board, inevitably, we would put the tile down, take points, and then say, where do I draw from again? And then I have to pick it up, and then I look at the icon, and then put it down again. It's slightly frustrating, but again, it's the first time playing with the B side, so perhaps with more experience, that would not happen. So, little oddness, of course, you're drafting. Things are going to come up at random. You don't necessarily know what is going to go when. You're just trying to maximize the points that you're getting, and because it's hard to plan for the future, often you're just looking for whatever gives you the most points on this particular turn. Great, the subway scoring tile was up. Maybe I should push for subways, except maybe that will never come. So should I disadvantage my scoring now to build for subways in the future, when in fact anything might come up? We had one game where we had 3 scoring tiles in a row in one stack, and that can definitely happen. And again, that accelerates the pace of the game, where you thought there were going to be multiple tiles coming out, which would represent multiple player turns, and instead 3 tiles just were gone at once, placed over in the scoring area. So the pace of the game varies from fast to very fast, at least on my experience of the game. So it's hard. You got to wrap your head around that, and I have not yet done so, where you were just trying to maximize everything and possibly just say, don't worry about the future, points now, just go for it. Each player has a bonus token, and you get to use this once during the game. You can get the 2 bonuses that are on the green squares, so I can spend this bonus token to double the points. I can spend the bonus token to take another turn, but I cannot double up those. So I can't double something and then double it again on a green area, or take multiple turns all in one turn. You can use each bonus action only once on a single turn. So possibly you place a green one turn and then use this on another turn if you're trying to double the points or take another turn and place more tiles down. The alternate thing you can do with this bonus token is to score a type of building that has 1 scoring token already visible. So this gives you the out if you're trying to build up for something and go for a big score. You can force it to score by spending your token. I build up lots of parks. There's only 1 park token there. I can wait. Maybe it will come up, or I can spend my token and then boom, everyone scores for parks as if that second token had come up. And after that point, if the second token does come up, doesn't matter. You just ignore it. I've played twice now where we've had 2 scoring tokens for things multiple times before anyone had that type of building in play. So again, it's the randomness of the tiles where you're incentivized to build something, but often you don't have the ability to act on it because you don't have that type of tile in your hand, or the thing scores before you're able to build something up. So I don't know if there should be additional setup. I don't know if you want to go through that type of complication, or whether it's even important to do so, where you would have 1 of each type of scoring thing in the bottom half of the stacks and another in the top half of the stacks, and that would sort of even out the scoring possibilities a bit, but it also would be a different game. It would possibly be less interesting because you lack the randomness there. That's what this game gives you, is abilities to score. You don't know what's happening when, and you just have to respond to it and roll with it as quickly as you can. One other odd feature that we've noticed in 2 games is that people have run away with it by building subways. And perhaps this is by chance, and perhaps it's just terrible with the other people not taking subways away from them. But it's interesting to look at the shops, how the shops score based on the things that are orthogonally adjacent. They want to maximize 2 types of buildings. And subways are placed diagonally, so you place 2 subways, and then you put the shop here, and it's going to be adjacent to those 2 subways. Whereas if you have an office building, they want to be orthogonally adjacent. Same thing for the parks. So you need 3 of them in order to wrap around a shop. So it takes more to score for them than it does for a subway. Maybe it's just by chance. All right. There was one game where, okay, guy had built up. I think he had 3 or 4 subways. I'm like, all right, I have to take subways from him. But there were no subways there until, of course, I took my turn, flipped over a subway tile, and he was next. So he was able to grab the subway anyway. So you can't necessarily stop someone from doing that unless you start early. Maybe you'll get a chance to keep someone from dominating that. I don't know if subways matter that much, or it just was by chance in the 2 games that we played. I played 5 times. It's hard to draw judgments from that type of balance issue based on 5 games. The pace of the game, I can definitely make a judgment on, and that it is faster than I expect, even when I expect it to be fast. Corollary to Hofstadter's law, I think. So when you play Bloomtown, you got to think about that. You're not going to have time necessarily to build up as much as you might want, depending on how people are building and where they're taking the tiles from. And you want to prepare for that end game scoring so that you're not stuck holding 2 homes and you have only 1 home in your home that's worth 2 points. And so you blow the end game bonus as opposed to getting something good. So you got that tension between holding on to something or putting it down and scoring more points in anticipation of a scoring token coming up, or just maximizing the points when you put it on a doubler space. So you've got lots of quick tension in the building, a little quicker than you might expect. And there's an overview of Bloomtown.